I never imagined that a simple Saturday evening would turn into the moment that changed my entire life. That night, I was supposed to be watching the game with my friends, a match we'd been excited about for months. But Daryl, my best friend, called and said his son was sick, and the whole group decided to cancel the plans. No big deal, I thought. I'll surprise Heather. She'll be happy to see me home early. It was 9 p.m. I drove home feeling lighthearted, like a happy husband. But as soon as I turned onto our street, something seemed off. There were 3 cars parked in front of the house. I immediately recognized Michelle and Kathleen's cars, Heather's 2 best friends. Nothing strange, though. Heather had mentioned she was getting together with the girls while I was away, but when I got closer to the side gate leading into the backyard, I heard laughter. Then I heard my name. Griffin? Oh my God, he still has no idea. Heather's voice was slurred from the alcohol. I froze. It felt like the blood in my head stopped flowing. Michelle shouted, "How long have you been keeping this secret?" "Almost 3 years." Heather laughed harshly. "You guys remember that morning Griffin made breakfast with buttered toast and French eggs? The day before, Sutton and I were having fun on his sofa." The laughter echoed through the garden like a knife slicing through my heart. I couldn't move. My throat was choked. My feet were rooted to the ground like rotting tree stumps. I shook, not with anger, but with shock. She continued, gleeful, about how she'd used every business trip I took to invite her lover to the house, about how she faked a stomach ache at my father's funeral just to be with him, about how she used our joint account to book hotel rooms for client meetings. But in reality, it was all to have an affair. I listened to every word like it was a nail hammered into my heart. Each detail was a stab. The worst part wasn't her betrayal. It was the indifference, the contempt, the mockery she aimed at me in front of her friends. I wasn't a husband. I was a joke, a fool being led around. Not letting my emotions take over, I turned away, silent as a ghost, and got into the car. I drove straight to the Target parking lot nearby. I sat there alone in the dark, suffocating in the emotional fog. I, a man who just lost faith in life itself. 10:15 p.m. I called Daryl. "Daryl, everything just collapsed," I said. "Heather, she, she mocked me in front of her friends. She's been cheating on me. For years." "Don't go home," Daryl quickly said. "Come to my place right now." At Daryl's house, I couldn't sleep. I paced the floor all night like a ghost. Daryl went online, looking up top divorce lawyers in the city. He didn't say much, just listened, nodding occasionally. I was thankful he didn't try to comfort me, because that night I didn't need comfort. I needed a plan. Around 3 a.m., I received a message from Heather. "Everyone's passed out. Hope you're having a good time with the guys. Love you." I laughed, a hollow, empty laugh. The next day, I came home like nothing had happened. I told her that Daryl and I had gotten drunk, so I stayed at his place. She didn't suspect anything, just complained about having to clean up after her girl power party. I started gathering evidence. I waited for her to go take a shower, then quietly checked her phone. Text messages, explicit photos, hotel booking history. Everything was right there. I screenshot it all and sent it to a secret email. I checked the bank statements. She was using our joint account to buy lingerie, take her lover to fancy restaurants, to hide from me. Every line on those papers was a crime. Every photo was a conviction. And I, the one who had once thought I was weak, was now the judge in my own marriage trial. I knew I couldn't confront her directly. Heather was someone who lived for appearances. She flaunted our happy home, perfect husband, and sweet life together on Instagram. But it was all a stage, and I, once the silent actor who had no voice, was about to become the director. I met with a lawyer, someone known as the most ruthless in town, according to Google reviews. She looked at me and said flatly, "Griffin, if you follow the plan I've outlined, not only will you leave this marriage, but she won't ever get up from the ashes she's created herself." I nodded. A trial was coming, and this time I was the one calling the shots. From the moment I left that lawyer's office, everything changed. I, Griffin, the man once called too naive to understand by my wife, was now sitting in front of my personal computer. The blue light from the screen reflected on my face. No longer the man who had been hurt, but a man who was making a plan. meticulously, step by step, not missing a single detail. Heather still had no clue. She was still living in the play she'd written, where she was the perfect wife with a loving husband and a loyal group of friends. And I, in her eyes, was still the fool, always following my emotions. Too good to doubt, and too dumb to figure anything out. I played that role so well that even I started to feel the chill. The day after my meeting with the lawyer, I came home earlier than usual. Heather was preparing dinner, still wearing her sweet, familiar mask. "You're home already? I'm making that wine sauce chicken you love." I smiled. "Sounds amazing. You really are the best wife." She smiled back, confident that I was still swallowing her lies whole. But in my mind, everything was already set in motion. That night, as she fell asleep, muttering, "I love you, Griffin," I quietly got up. I grabbed the USB drive containing all the evidence, made 2 backups, one to a secure cloud storage account, and one to a new safe deposit box in the apartment she had no idea I had rented. I wasn't doing this alone. Daryl, my best friend, became my strategic assistant. He helped me sort through the evidence, check timestamps, cross-reference GPS data with bank statements. Every night, it was like we were 2 detectives recreating a crime scene, with me as the victim and the perpetrator lying next to me every night. "Do you see this?" Daryl asked, pointing at a hotel receipt. "She booked the room right when you were flying to New York." "Same day I had the client meeting," I muttered. "She even booked an extra 2 hours after checkout." Daryl clicked his tongue, clearly to stay longer. The couch I used to nap on had now become the place of her betrayal. The silk nightgown I gave her for our 5th wedding anniversary was apparently what she wore to impress her lover. Everything now, every memory, every object, felt like a trap. I planned the financial part. I transferred half of our savings to a new personal account, completely separate from our joint one. Then I told Heather, "The bank suspects our account was hacked, so they've temporarily locked the card. They're sending a new one." She nodded, never suspecting a thing. A few days later, when her card was declined at the cosmetics store, she called, panicked. "Our card's been locked. I'm so confused." I responded with a fake tone of confusion. "Oh no, I'm sorry. The bank probably sent it to the wrong address. I'll call and check." In my head, everything was already part of the plan. I secretly prepared a new apartment, a small, clean studio with no dirty memories attached. I only took what I couldn't replace: my father's watch, a few old photos, personal records. Every time Heather went out to meet clients, I carefully moved things, quietly like a ghost. Then came the most important part: Heather's reputation. She wasn't just cheating, she was also the perfect wife on social media, posting moral captions, sharing photos of baking, and quotes full of wisdom. I started planting seeds. At gatherings with our mutual friends, I casually dropped questions. "Have you noticed how Heather's been acting lately? Seems a bit distant, don't you think? Have you ever felt like marriage is like living with a stranger?" I didn't accuse her of cheating. I didn't blame her. I just let them start questioning for themselves. And in a network of relationships, doubt is like slow-acting poison. It's incredibly effective. I also started saving her Instagram posts, each sweet photo contrasting completely with what I knew. One day she was at a hotel with her lover. Another time, doing charity, but actually using family funds to book a villa for 2 nights with Sutton. 2 weeks passed. I continued to play the dutiful husband. I made her coffee every morning. We watched Netflix every night. I even enjoyed myself in the bedroom when she initiated it. Meanwhile, I had everything in place: separate finances, irrefutable evidence of the affair, a new apartment, a lawyer ready to fight to the end, and a D-Day plan. The day I would completely destroy the fake world Heather had built. Heather had no idea. She couldn't, because to her I was still Griffin, the easygoing husband. But what she didn't know was that, deep inside me, the fire had died. Now only ice remained, and I, the husband who once believed in blind love, was about to become the cold sentence she never saw coming. I chose D-Day, the day of destruction, carefully like a military operation. Not on her birthday, not on an anniversary, not during a romantic evening, but on the day Heather was hosting her biggest event of the year, the VIP Client Appreciation Party, where she boasted about her professionalism, dedication, and, ironically, her happy family backing her up. A beautiful Friday afternoon, in a lovely dress, with wine flowing and lies spilling out like expensive perfume. I called it the false holiday, and it would be the perfect stage for the grand reveal. That morning I woke up early, brewed coffee, got her dressed in her vest, complimented her, telling her she looked like a movie star. "Good luck today," I said, giving her a light kiss on the forehead. "Thank you, the best husband in the world," she replied. She had no idea. This was the last time I would play that part. 10 a.m., right on schedule, I sent the destruction files to Sutton's wife via express delivery. Inside was a screenshot of the steamy text messages, hotel receipts, an expense report using my money, and finally a recording of Heather calling me, "that idiot who doesn't know anything." I added a small note. "I thought you should know the truth, because no one deserves to be lied to like I was." I included my phone number, if she wanted to talk. 12:07 p.m. was when all hell officially broke loose. The first message came from Heather. "Sutton is calling me nonstop. What the hell is going on?" Then came the call. I didn't pick up. 1 minute later, "Sutton's wife just showed up at the event." "What did you do, Griffin?" Another minute. "Answer me. What the hell is going on?" I sat in the new apartment, sipping hot tea, watching notifications pop up on the screen, like knocks of panic. 2 p.m., Heather was forced to leave the event. Mascara smudged, lips trembling. The reason? Family emergency. Right. Her family was burning to ashes. 3 p.m., I emailed Heather's parents. Cold but clear. "I've always respected you both, and I don't want you to be hurt. But I cannot stay silent while Heather fabricates lies and twists the truth. Here is the full evidence of her behavior over the past 3 years. I'm sorry I have to be the one to bring this news." Attached was the file titled, "The Truth Needs No Filter." 6:30 p.m. I returned to the old house, the one that used to be home. Heather walked in, a wreck, her spirit shattered, holding her breath like someone who knows they're about to be sentenced to death. "Griffin, why did you tell Laura?" I looked at her emotionless. "You thought I didn't know anything? You thought I was just some fool who didn't understand what was going on?" She collapsed onto the couch, hands gripping her skirt, desperately trying to hold on to reality. "Griffin, I was wrong. I didn't know it would turn out this way." I placed the divorce papers I had already prepared on the table. "I knew everything, and I've been planning this while you were laughing with him, sleeping beside me, looking me in the eye and telling me, 'You're the only one.'" Her face went pale. She was no longer the confident woman, no longer the Instagram wife. She was a child lost in the storm she created. I continued in a calm voice. "You have 3 days to leave the house. I've signed a new lease. This apartment will no longer be a place where you live under my protection." "You can't do this," she screamed. I looked her directly in the eye. "I can, and I will, because I'm not the fool you think I am." In the days that followed, Heather went from anger to begging, then to threatening, then to self-pity. "It was just sex. I was lonely. You've neglected me too." I didn't respond to any of that, because at this point I wasn't fighting to win an argument. I was reclaiming my dignity, and Heather, the woman who thought she could control everything, was now just an erased element from my life. The final shock came when she realized her accounts were frozen, her credit cards deactivated, old friends started avoiding her, and her family wasn't backing her up like before. Michelle and Kathleen never showed up again. Sutton disappeared after his wife dragged him into the spotlight. Now he's scrambling to pin all the blame on Heather to salvage his family. As for me, I'm calmly tidying up my new apartment, drinking coffee, and waiting for the day of the trial. At the trial, there were no tears, no background music, no spotlight, just paperwork, lawyers, and cold, steel-like stares. I sat there, white shirt, neatly tied tie, next to my lawyer. Heather sat across from me, light makeup, dressed up, trying to keep up the image of a decent person. She thought she could use tears to make everything go back to the way it was. But here, no one gets an award for Best Leading Lady. As soon as the hearing began, Heather dove into her usual defense tactic. I admit I made mistakes, but one mistake shouldn't erase 8 years of marriage. Griffin neglected me. We lost our emotional connection. Her lawyer tried to sweet-talk the court. My client only found empathy from someone else in a moment of weakness. She shouldn't be stripped of what she built with her husband. I didn't react. Only when my lawyer stood up and gently placed a thick file on the table did the entire mood in the courtroom shift. Your Honor, we don't just have one mistake. We have a 3-year-long campaign. We have detailed evidence, from emails, screenshots, hotel receipts, to an audio recording of Heather describing her husband as too stupid to know what's going on. We have evidence that she used marital assets to support an extramarital affair, while my client was busy making a living, caring for the family, and even during his father's funeral. A silence fell. No one said anything. Heather lowered her head, and for the first time in months, I felt free. My lawyer continued, "My client isn't asking for sympathy. He only seeks justice and fairness." The hearing lasted for 3 days. During that time, Heather went from blaming me to denying everything to pure desperation. She tried every trick, saying the love was still there, suggesting reconciliation, even threatening. "If you divorce me like this, I'll tell your friends that you emotionally abused me." My lawyer was unfazed. She simply slid a photo of Heather in Sutton's arms across the table, then coldly said, "In this state, adultery is a factor that directly affects asset division and rights. If you want to air all the dirty laundry, we're ready." Heather fell silent. That was the one time I saw her shake. 2 weeks later, we reached an agreement. I kept all retirement accounts, 70% of the joint assets, and full rights to the old apartment. Heather was given just enough to start over, but not enough to continue living the lavish life she once had. The judge, a woman in her 60s with eyes sharp as a scalpel, said one simple thing: "You should consider yourself lucky. With this record, he could have taken much more from you." As for her friends, her social circle, and her reputation, Heather lost it all. Michelle and Kathleen vanished as if they'd never existed. The people who once liked her photos and left heart comments on her Instagram posts were now silent. Sutton, the man in the shadows, struggled to hold on to his wife after being dragged into the light as the cowardly playboy he truly was. Heather ended up moving back in with her parents, in her old bedroom, with floral wallpaper from her high school days. From a high-rise apartment with a view of the city to a corner room bathed in cold, fluorescent light. I didn't feel happy about that, but I felt like justice had been restored. She built her castle on sand, and I was just the one waiting for the tide to come in. The day we left the courthouse, Heather called me over. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Griffin, did you ever love me?" I didn't look her in the eye. I simply said, "I did. A lot. But you taught me something important. Love can't exist without honesty." Then I turned away, not to walk away, but to be free. I used to think that signing the divorce papers would be my liberation. I thought I'd feel light, free, like I was unshackled. But the truth was, when the courthouse doors closed, what hit me wasn't a feeling of victory. It was a vast emptiness. Heather wasn't beside me anymore, and strangely, that made my new apartment feel too quiet. The first night after the divorce, I walked into my apartment alone, with just 3 things in my hands: a divorce file, a key, and a phone with no calls from Heather anymore. No one said, "You're home." No one asked, "Have you eaten yet?" And there was no one lying next to me, not even pretending. I put the bag down on the floor, sat on the carpet, and I cried. Not because I missed her, but because I mourned the years I had spent blind to my own life. The days that followed were a blur of repetitive routines. Work in the morning, home at night, ordering food through an app because I didn't want to cook or even eat. It was the darkest time when I felt myself slipping mentally. The small apartment where I lived had only a single mattress on the floor, a few bare essentials. No decoration, no flowers, no music. My best friend Daryl eventually had to stage an intervention, literally. One Saturday morning, he showed up unannounced, carrying a bag of donuts, a bottle of orange juice, and knocked on my door like he was about to break it down. "I'm not letting you waste away in this apartment," he said, throwing the donut bag onto the table. Sit down, talk to me, all of it. I told him everything. I shared how I felt betrayed, the sleepless nights when Heather lay beside me, and I was making plans to pull myself out of the fire she had set. The hurt I felt when I realized all those "I love you" words were just a performance. And the most painful part, the dreams I once had with her, now gone, with no one to share them with anymore. After that, Daryl dragged me back into playing soccer. "Your legs still work, which means your heart is still alive," he said. I signed up for therapy. I started small. I bought a new bed, a real bed, not just a temporary mattress. I hung pictures on the wall. No more wedding photos, but a picture of me standing alone on top of a white rock mountain in Colorado, taken by Daryl. I re-signed up for the gym and started cooking simple meals. A month after starting therapy, my therapist, Marcus, didn't say things like, "She wasn't worth you," or "You'll find someone better." He just asked, "What do you feel you lost the most in all of this?" I answered after a moment of silence, "Trust, not in her, but in myself." Every week I cleaned up a corner of my mind, like how I cleaned out each drawer in my house. I deleted old photos, deleted the messages that never got replied to. I moved the evidence files from my desktop to an external hard drive, locked it, so it no longer haunted me every day like a ghost. 2 months later, I went on my first date. It wasn't love at first sight. No fireworks, no hand-holding, just a cup of coffee, a normal conversation, and the light feeling of leaving the cafe, thinking I can start over if I'm not in a rush, not scared. One afternoon, I ran into Heather again at Home Depot. She was alone, looking pale with shorter hair and tired eyes. We both pushed our carts, and then we literally bumped into each other. "Griffin," she said, as though she hadn't said my name in months. I nodded. No greeting, no anger, no rush to walk away. She asked if we could talk for a bit. I agreed. We sat on a wooden bench in front of the store, bags of groceries in hand, like two people who once shared a home, now strangers. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't beg. She just said, "I know I ruined everything. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I'm learning how to live honestly. I'm in therapy, and I'm moving to Chicago, starting over." I listened. Then she said the last thing. "I know it doesn't matter now, but I really did love you. I just didn't know how to love someone right. Not even myself." I didn't say anything. I just looked at her and nodded. When she walked away, there were no tears, no broken hearts, just a man standing in the afternoon light, watching the back of someone who used to be close, like a chapter of a book that's now closed. 6 months after the divorce, I looked back at my life and realized I didn't hate Heather anymore. Not because I forgot what she did, but because I no longer let her live in my head every day. When you stop hating someone, it doesn't mean you've forgiven them. It just means you've put down the burden, so your hands are free to grab onto new things. I started new routines. In the mornings, I woke up early, opened the window, played some soft music, made coffee, and no longer poured 2 cups. Just one. For me. I bought more books on photography, Stoic philosophy, and a few fantasy novels. It had been a long time since I read, not as an escape from reality, but because I genuinely wanted to immerse myself in the pages. I stopped checking Heather's Instagram. I stopped wondering, how is she living? Because I realized how I was living was the only thing that truly mattered now. One Friday afternoon, I came home early. I opened my computer, gathered all the evidence files, photos, recordings, bank statements. I sat there looking at them for a while. What were once weapons, now just remnants. I created a folder named Done, copied everything into it, and then deleted them all. I didn't do it because I was soft. I did it because I understood. Relief doesn't come from holding on, it comes from letting go. Then one day I felt a spark again. Not loud, not thunderous. Just a girl from the hiking group I recently joined, named Ava. She didn't ask too many questions, didn't pry into the wounds. We just talked about mountains, trees, coffee, and those places where you feel small but free. I wasn't rushing, and neither was she. When I told her about my divorce, her eyes only showed calm. No pity. "Everyone has their own battles," she said. "What matters is You came out of it and kept the best parts of yourself. I smiled genuinely for the first time in months. I'm not sure what the future holds with Ava. I'm not putting too much pressure on it. I'm just living in the moment. Every morning I still wake up early, still make myself a cup of coffee, but now sometimes I make two. Not because I need someone next to me to feel complete, but because I know when you're already whole inside, that's when any new relationship has a chance to be healthy. I still get birthday cards from Heather's mom. It's strange. She still writes by hand, still wishes me strength and peace. I don't reply, but I smile every time I read them. They say, forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. I'm not sure I've completely forgiven, but I've freed myself from the past. One time, sitting in my favorite coffee shop, I overheard a group of people talking about betrayal. A man was angrily pounding the table saying, "I'll make her regret this for the rest of her life." I looked at my coffee cup, smiled softly, and thought to myself, I used to think like him, but now I realize the most beautiful regret isn't something you make happen. It's when they have to face it on their own. And me? I choose to keep living, really living, as the most peaceful form of revenge. I'm no longer the victim, not the betrayed one. I'm Griffin, a man who knows love doesn't come from blindness. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And healing isn't about going back to what was, but becoming a better version of yourself. The truth is, life doesn't end when someone breaks you. Sometimes it's just the first chapter of a new life. Thank you for listening to my story. If you resonate with it or have wounds that are still healing, don't forget to hit subscribe, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. Because maybe the story you've been keeping hidden is exactly what someone out there needs to hear today. I'll see you in the next story. Goodbye.